Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Quickscope, the esports betting show here at Sportsbook Review. Thank you for joining this early. Thank you for being here to discuss esports betting. Today, we have a lot of Counter-Strike specifically to go to. As you know, League of Legends regular seasons are pretty much over everywhere around the world. I think only Vietnam has to choose their World Championship representative, but everyone else is set. Counter-Strike, however, we do have tournaments happening and tournaments incoming fairly soon. FACEIT Major is going on right now on our computers. I'm sure you guys are watching it as well. ESL New York is coming soon. And then, of course, we have other tournaments that we might not be discussing today, but we will be on our next show, which will feature our very first guest. And I do have to apologize. Last time we did say that he'll be on for this episode, but unfortunately we did have to reschedule. But let's get started with today's content. Of course, you have me, Fabian Saga Rodriguez, hosting for you guys, and we have Adam, Locke, Booth, and of course Guillermo Neutral Dehan with us. Adam, start us off with how your day is going, and please let us know what you think about that MIBR nade that we just experienced a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, well, sadly, it started off just so depressingly. Big showed absolutely nothing. For all the hype, for all the, they're a dark horse, they can upset in the playoffs, who knows. They showed nothing today. Let's just be honest. It was from the very first pistol round. I said this to a colleague in the Discord. They miss a very simple smoke to smoke CT spawn. Every Gold Nova knows this smoke, and you can cross CT without being picked off one at a time. And they miss the smoke, it lands on short, and I was like, this spells doom for this map. And it carried on to Nuke, and Navi was the better team through and through, so they deserve the 2-0 and to be in the semifinal. But on that second match so far, we got a couple winners with MIBR on train, so happy about that.
Hell yeah, I'm really happy about MIBR. Of course, you guys know I'm a huge MIBR fan. I'm excited about that one. Unfortunately, I didn't get the time to put my bets in, so I'm really unhappy with that. It feels like that's just like how it is nowadays. You love a team, they're going to win, you don't get your bets in, then you do when they lose. It's just like not the coolest of experiences. But you know who is probably going to cash in real hard in this MIBR match? That is, of course, our boy Neutral. Tell us what your train of thought was with that minus 1.5 pick at what odds again? Can you remember us? It's 2 point something?
2.43.
Jesus, man. Yeah, I'm so happy for you.
Good odds.
How does it feel?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. It feels good. I mean, I thought that train would be an easy win for MIBR, right? So, like, MIBR, like, the core of MIBR used to be insane on train. I remember when they were, like, 15-0 on it on LAN, like, back in the days.
Yeah.
It's always been a good map for Fallen and those guys. And I think that Inferno Complexity has been good on it, but they're kind of picking into MIBR's good maps as well, because MIBR has been pretty good on Inferno as well, besides that Tyloo game. But this set they've learned from the Tyloo game. And ever since they've only, they smashed their only match after that on Inferno. So I have faith in the minus 1.5.
Absolutely. Hey, you know what? Man, I wish we could talk about League of Legends, honestly. I just wanted to let everyone know. We have a bunch of people here joining so far. I want to thank every single one of you. As I said, Counter-Strike's what we're going to be talking about today. But do make sure you follow us on Twitter at SBR Esports and join our Discord. I believe there is not a link to it on the description below, which we'll fix later. But you can find our link to our Discord on our Twitter. So do make sure you go there and join our Discord, because we're really trying to build a community there. We're going to be discussing a lot on that Discord channel with all the upcoming tournaments and esports events that are happening around the world. So thank you really just everyone for joining and for being part of the show. Do let us know if you have any feedback for us, if there's anything that you want us to discuss. I know there's a lot of esports market being opened in different books lately. So maybe there's a subject subject matter expert around there that wants to discuss StarCraft or Street Fighter or Dota or anything else. And some of us, at least for example, like I know Adam knows a lot about Dota and StarCraft, and he does bet that. I bet Street Fighter every now and then when, of course, the odds show up, which is essentially like 2 times a year. But there are tons of other esports that we can discuss. Feel free to let us know. But do make sure to follow us on Twitter as well. Anyway, we do have the FACEIT Major happening, but I think it's best if we start with ESL New York. We do have groups already decided, and there are favorites for those that we want to talk about. Every single one of us has favorites for these. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just hop on to Bet365 real quick and go over what the current odds are for the ESL New York. Let's find that real quick here. And Group A. So let's go over Group A real quick. We have Navi at 1.9 as the favorite to win that group, followed by Mouse at 4.0, Fnatic at 5.0, and Gambit at 9.0. I think these odds are actually pretty accurate. Having Navi as the favorite does seem like the right choice by the bookie, but it's still not bad for us, right? 1.9 doesn't seem too bad. Adam, what are your thoughts on Group A? Who's your favorite, and do you see value in any of these odds?
Yeah, I was looking over. The one thing you have to consider going into this tournament is the scheduling right after the major.
Right.
So we already know Navi's going to be through to the semifinal, and in that group, the other 3 teams were all knocked out in the groups this past weekend. So they've already going to have a week's more rest at least on Navi coming in. So while I think the Navi line, there is value if this were just any other tournament, Fnatic, Mouse Sports, and Gambit, they're all in the mix of in the middle of maybe roster shuffle rumors, and Hobbit might be leaving Gambit shortly. Oscar might be leaving Mouse Sports. Draken might be leaving Fnatic. We don't know what's going on with that roster.
Yeah.
So you'd say, well, Navi is the most stable of the 4 rosters. They're in the best form. It's a clear pick to take Navi to win that group. I think that's a good pick. I don't know what Navi's week after the major is going to look like. Maybe they'll be very keen on, coming out and winning 2 maps right away and making into the playoffs. I'm not going to place anything until next week for the groups, but I can tell you those other 3 rosters, lots of talent, but we saw them all fail to impress in the major qualifiers and major group stages. So I'm not going to touch anything for that tournament just yet.
And it does make a lot of sense. The roster changes, as you said, Adam, are all over the place, and it feels like this is probably just like a general comment. But of course, if you guys are into traditional sports betting, you do know the importance of watching out for starting players or starting rosters and players that are moving around from one team to another. It seems like in Counter-Strike, you do have to be a little bit more sharp with where the players are moving, because contracts seem to be like shorter and shorter nowadays. Or I don't know if the contracts are shorter or just the players don't really care or the contracts don't mean much, but players seem to be moving around way more often lately. I don't know if that's just me or if you guys feel the same way. Neutral, do you feel the same way about this?
I think it's mostly just like it used to be like when you sign a contract, obviously, like it used to be like people would just basically sell out their rights just to be able to have a contract, because sponsors and orgs were really scarce.
Yeah.
And then when they signed the contract, the orgs could just ask for an insane buyout. But I think that we're approaching the point where these buyouts aren't even that insane anymore. I mean, there were the rumors of Simple and Flamey costing around $800,000, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the weird thing is, when you think about it, like these 2 players are one of the most decorated players of CSGO. Simple is, in my opinion, the best player in CSGO, and Flamey is just really good as well. So at this point we're starting to wonder whether it's actually like these amounts of money are actually like reasonable. So I feel like because there's continuously more money in this esports business, we'll see a lot more buyouts happen and a lot more moves happen.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
was gonna
that.
add,
Mhm.
in addition to that, Counter-Strike is different than, say, League or Dota, where there is some sort of regimented schedule and format across the board.
Yeah.
So Counter-Strike has all these different tournament organizers. There's the ECS season, there's the ESL Pro League. They all have different requirements for roster changes, timings, and so there's a lot of fluctuation. The CS:GO feels very much still in a Wild West format as far as
True.
things being um, more thought out over the long term. So if players feel like the dynamic in their team is changing, they know that they can just drop out of that team, go to another, and still be allowed to play in the next tournament or a tournament six months later, or something like that. Whereas with League, I mean I don't know a lot about it, but you can't really just switch roster to roster when you've been playing half a season, for C9 and then go to TSM. You don't really hear things like that. Whereas
Yeah.
you will see half of an Optic roster all of a sudden switch to Cloud9 and then be in MIBR all within a year and a half.
Yeah.
So
No, that is absolutely
yeah, it is.
right. And like there's a downside to it as well, of course. Um a lot of the feedback that we've been receiving from like the professional players in the League of Legends uh, esports scene is that since you can't really just drop off or change or do anything crazy mid season, it turns out that the League of Legends schedule is actually fairly busy and it's very exhausting for players, right? They do have, especially for teams that they win a lot. They win the regular season, then they go directly to MSI. If they win that, they go all the way. Then they go back to regular season. Then there's Rift Rivals. Then there's all these whole sort of different special events like All Stars and whatnot. You also have Worlds coming up. It's really exhausting. So it does seem like there's a shift in how that's working. But not to change subjects real quick. Just something interesting for esports bettors to know, and that's always the reason why we talk about these things, even though we're not going on specific picks or anything. We discuss these things because they do have an impact on how you bet esports, right? The same way that, as I said previously, that in traditional sports you would want to know what's the starting roster or who's injured and all that kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that you also want to know when you're betting esports. Before we move on into Group 2 or Group B, sorry, Neutral, do you have any favorite picks for futures on Group A for ESL One New York?
I actually think that Locke said it quite well. Navi would be the obvious pick here since we all know that Mousesports, Fnatic, and Gambit are in shambles with all the rumors obviously of Draken, Oscar, and Hobbit. But that's one factor that I kind of have to take into effect before betting Navi, as well as we don't know the format quite yet, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if it's two BO1s to go through and win the group, or whether it's one BO1 and then a best of 3. Because if it's two best of 1s, a team like Mousesports can still upset a Navi in a best of 1. But if it's a BO3 to win the group, then I'd say Navi should have it in the bag. So I'd say if the format turns out to be best of 1 into best of 3 for the winners match, Navi at 1.9 should be even more valuable.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's the obvious choice as well. I think we're all in that one if we decide to bet on it early. Let's talk about Group B, guys. I'm gonna go over the odds as of now. Team Liquid starts off as the favorite at 2.2, followed by FaZe at 3.0, G2 at 5.5, and then finally Energy at 9.0. So these are it starts off at a bit of a higher or better odds, 2.2 for Team Liquid. Not too bad, honestly. FaZe might be a little bit overpriced, not entirely sure. How do you guys feel about that? Adam, maybe you can start us off with Group B and your thoughts on that.
If you mean underpriced, yeah. As in they should be lower. I was surprised that Liquid had a lower price than FaZe did on that one.
Right, yeah.
I mean, we saw Liquid take, go 3-0 in the qualifier. They went 3-0 again in the groups this past week. They haven't played FaZe recently, so we can't comment on who's the better team if they have an opening match. But again, these two teams are in the quarterfinals playing tomorrow. There's a chance we could even see them play on Saturday. So we'll get a better sense of who between the two of them is more clear cut to take the group. But that group is really the more interesting. I think the winner of this tournament will come out of that group. It's more stacked, and you've also got G2, who, yes, they should have made it probably into the playoffs here at the major, but they had some weak T sides. They now have a week to prepare that some of these other teams won't have for New York. And then you also have Energy, which was the biggest disappointment at the North American qualifier in July. They should have been here over, Rogue or Complexity, one of the two teams. They lost to E United. I think it was in the third map. And then I think they got 2-0'd by Complexity. But you'd say they've got to be hungry for a tournament win here. They have some talent. They'll have the rest. Maybe they've been looking at the demos from these other teams. So my dark horse for this tournament is NRG. They've played Na'Vi before in a grand final at Star Series in June or maybe May, and I think they'll be hungry. So I really like NRG to make it out of this group. I think either FaZe or Liquid will probably be a bit fatigued with the travel.
Right.
So I'm not going to say Energy should be priced lower than they are, but I do think that they have a shot to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Hey, shoutouts to Dreamus, who's always joining our show. He's on the chat. He's looking at MIBR at 1.8 odds at the moment. Live, guys. Complexity is looking good, though, so I don't really know what's going on. I haven't been watching too carefully. But,
they're up 4-3 after losing the pistol.
Yeah.
They're up 4-3 after losing the pistol on the T side of Inferno.
Right.
And we know that the CT side is MIBR's stronger side, so it's not too bad.
Not too bad. Not too bad indeed. So shoutouts to him. Shoutouts to Scotty Rock Forever, who's joining us on chat as well, and Natalie as well, who will be having her show right after this one. So if you guys are into soccer, into traditional sports, this is where you want to be at. So most definitely check out that when our show is over. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, going back to ESL New York Group B, that's, you hit it right where it is. I think Team Liquid and FaZe should be like closer on the odds right there. I'm not entirely sure I want to bet on any of these just yet. Neutral, do you have any sort of thoughts for Group B, and do you have any sort of bets that you're placing early, or are you waiting?
Well, the two general thoughts I have on looking at these odds are, first off, I do feel like Team Liquid is the best pick here, since I know they haven't shown that much, but I've already said it last week when I chose them as my team to go far, I guess. They just have the strategy, they have the role set up, and their map pool just seems to be really good. And I want people to keep in mind that FaZe signed Karrigan as their IGL, but at the moment it's Nico who's calling for FaZe, because Nico said after they went 0-2, Nico decided to take over the IGL role, and he's calling for almost all the T rounds. And they've been doing fine with that, but I mean, they haven't really faced that many great opponents ever since Nico's taken over. So I feel like the fact that Nico takes over the IGL role might show some inner turmoil in FaZe, and I get that because they haven't really done that great. And I feel like Team Liquid is supposed to be, I think Team Liquid is still better than FaZe. So, and my second thought was that I was really surprised by Energy being priced higher than G2, because I think Energy would win a BO1 or BO3 against G2 at the moment. Energy, they choked at the minor, but besides that, they've shown that they're a really solid team, and I think that they win a BO3 or BO1 over G2 most of the time. So if that match does happen and Energy have above even odds, I'd definitely go Energy, personally.
Interesting. Bold. Okay, I like that.
I really like that.
Yeah, that is a really good mentality towards that toward that group. All right, guys. So I think it's time to move on to the major. Just so we cover this quickly and finish on time.
Yeah.
So we have 2 matches happening tomorrow, and we'll be talking about the matches happening tomorrow. Because as much as we want to bet live on MIBR and Complexity right now, it's the stuff for tomorrow that we have prepared for the show. So tomorrow we have 4 teams rather, going up against each other for their spot on the next round of these playoffs. The first match that we'll have is Team Liquid versus HellRaisers that will be going up against each other. Now, I don't know how I feel about this match. Like, I don't know how I feel about these odds, man. I did pick HellRaisers to go deep in the tournament. That paid off. Apparently, they're here. Or I picked them to surprise, rather. I can't remember now. But one or the other, they did both, in my opinion. So they are here, and that's what matters. But I don't know if they can take Team Liquid on. Let's talk about best bets for this match. Yeah, let's just go over these real quick. Adam, do you have any best bets that you have for Team Liquid versus HellRaisers?
Yeah, I do. I posted in an article on Tuesday with my preview for this opening round that I was taking HellRaisers on the spread to take 1 map off of Liquid. Now, I neutral's on the other side, so I know that he's gonna have some counterpoints. So I'm gonna try to lay it out best that I can.
Yeah.
Now, HellRaisers, they are definitely a team that is surprised. They've had some very chaotic maps. I think they've played the most overtime maps of any team that's in this stage. They just seem to grind out victories. They're a team from the CIS region, and they've only been playing together, I think, about a year with Issa and Woxic on the team. Now, I don't actually like betting this team very often, so when I do take them, I have to have some pretty good reasons. Now, I really liked the way that they played Dust2 and Cash against Fnatic. Now, Fnatic is not Liquid. Fnatic will not have had the CT side that Liquid can have. So I know that you can't compare apples and oranges, but I think that HellRaisers have never been hungrier. I think that they have the ability and the team play to grind out a map against Liquid, be it Dust2 or Cash. It has to be one of those maps. If it's not, play the other side, because there's no way that they're going to take a Mirage or an Inferno off of Team Liquid. Liquid is great on the CT side. They have excellent setups, team play. They push for information, and on T side, they're entering sites and just doming people. They're just taking heads off. They're winning clutches. Their pistol rounds have been better than HR's. So it's not like I think HellRaisers should be, favored to win their own map, but I think that they could pull out some strats that could catch Liquid off guard, and I think their CT side will be good enough to hold on either Cash or Dust2. So that's why I'm taking HellRaisers. Do I think they win a series? No, but they are juicy dogs. So Liquid might not be as ready to go. HellRaisers have been fighting for their tournament lives since I don't know, two weeks ago almost. So that's why I like him for this one.
Yeah, I think that is very accurate. Woxic, to me, as I said it before, he's one of my favorites. He's real great. And I'm really happy to see HellRaisers do this well. As I said, I don't know that they can take Team Liquid, but at the odds that you have available for the spread, that's not bad. I do see that currently HellRaisers plus 1.5 is at 2.0. Did you get better odds for that when you placed that bet, Adam?
No, I got even odds for it. And I think it's about that across the board. I think between 1.9 and 2.1.
Yeah.
I've seen it kind of vary a little bit. But yeah, like you were saying, Woxic on Dust2, he comes alive. So
True.
Liquid would have to have a very strict plan to shut him down on both sides. And Issa, I mean, he has been the man of that region. For me, he's impressed more than like a Simple and Electronic, because we expected of those guys. But Issa, this is his first major. He's a young player, and he is dropping 30 bombs and stuff like that. It's incredible.
That is crazy. All right, guys, I want to also take some time to give a huge shout outs to the Money Gang that is always joining the shows here at Sportsbook Review. I see Ski Profit on the chat right there. And of course, we were talking about Scotty earlier today. Shout outs to them. Shout outs to the great content that they're putting out. King's Court is actually one of the pieces that they're working on. It's absolutely great. You should definitely check that out. NBA is around the corner. There's a bunch of stuff that they talk about that's real good. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you follow them as well on Twitter. I believe Money Gang Sports is what their handle is, but if I'm wrong, I'm sure they'll correct me on chat, or just look them up on Twitter and you'll find them. And as well, make sure you follow us at SBR Esports, where we retweet all of the picks that, of course, Adam, Guillermo, and myself all put up. And there's going to be so much for esports coming up fairly soon. As I said, we do have a special guest joining next show, and we'll be disclosing more information about that soon. So do make sure you keep an eye out on that, and join our Discord as well. Almost forgot about our Discord. This is where we discuss picks all the time, where we're talking, where we're watching the games live. One of the huge advantages of betting esports is that the games are streamed live for free, so there really isn't an excuse not to bet live on them. It's such a great way to bet esports is by doing it live. And then I also think I saw Alex around, so neat for tips as well. Thank you so much for joining, man. We do appreciate the support. Neutral, do you have anything? And Adam said you're on the opposite side, right? You're on the opposite side.
Yeah.
I honestly I haven't decided. I don't think I have any bets for this match, Team Liquid versus HellRaisers. But Neutral, you do. So let us know. What are you on, and what are your best bets for this encounter?
Yeah, so I'm on the other side of what Adam just said. I'm on Liquid minus 1.5, so Liquid to 2-0 HellRaisers. And I feel like it's I went for that one since, well, obviously match money line is like 1.2 odds, so that won't be worth it. But I feel like Liquid has such a strong map pool at the moment. They always ban Train, but I'm quite sure they're pretty good on Train as well. But if you just look at their maps, Dust 2 was mentioned before by Adam. I think HellRaisers will pick Dust 2 or Cash as well. But their Dust 2 just be really good. But against G2, there were some obvious like cracks in their play, and I feel like if G2 is able to beat them when Issa is going off, I mean G2 had Shocks going off, let's be honest, but I don't know, I feel like the Liquid is pretty good on Dust 2 as well. I remember their B side hold with Naf and Taco used to be like quite insane. Like they always have Naf and Taco on B on Mirage as well on Dust 2. So I feel like first off, Liquid's map pool is really good. It's really hard to pick something into Liquid. And second off, like I said, Liquid always had the potential to be the best in the world, or second best in the world, and I feel like after this player break, they've really gone to that potential, and I feel like I'm quite sure that they've reached that peak. And of course, you can't keep up that peak. You can be inconsistent, and I mean, if they start off slow, it will be hard to 2-0. But I think that we'll see a motivated Team Liquid here who just outplay, outsmart Liquid, because I mean, HellRaisers, pardon me, because HellRaisers have had some matches where I feel like they should have won, but they didn't. And I mean, if we look at the last matchup that HellRaisers had against Fnatic, they were up, if I recall, like 14-5 or something along those lines, and they ended up losing that map. They did win 2-1, but they just can't have those mistakes against Liquid, because Liquid will actually punish you, unlike Fnatic. So I feel like Liquid 2-0 is a good bet in my opinion. But yeah.
Interesting. So these guys are up against each other, and we'll see how that ends up. It's always fun, I'm going to go on a quick rant here. One of the things that I really have sort of like an issue with every now and then when I join like a new Discord or something like that is that some people don't, like, no one likes losing, right? But it's part of the game. It's part of how you learn. It's part of how this goes. Like no one wins all the time. So every now and then, hey, like in this scenario, Adam and Guillermo, they have different bets. They're going for different things. If one wins, the other doesn't. So it's really just a matter of having fun with this. And as long as you're doing your homework, you're researching, you're putting in your sharpest bets, that's what it's all about. So honestly, that was my rant right there. But we do have an important question, guys, that we want to answer before we move on to the next and last match that we'll be discussing. What's the best sportsbook for esports? hard question to answer, honestly, because we do have Scotty right here that's telling us that his current bookie doesn't allow him to bet live, which, you know, that's sort of like a red flag to me. It's time to look for a new sports book to bet on esports at least. What are you guys' thoughts? Maybe you want to share where you normally bet at, or what kind of books you recommend. I'll give mine as well, but Adam, maybe let's start off with you real quick. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, whenever someone has asked me, if they're either new to sports betting or they're new to esports betting, I almost always have the same answer. And my one go-to book is Pinnacle. I've been with them for 8 years in October, and I've never had an issue with anything, withdrawals, deposits. If lines are incorrect or contacting them, they don't do phones, but they do get back via email very quickly. So you have to look into the Pinnacle lines. They're very invested in esports. I've listened to a podcast with their head of trading, and it's like their fourth or fifth most popular area on their site. So I do say Pinnacle. They're not great for live betting. For live betting, I primarily use Arcane, Betway, Bet365. Previously using Nitrogen, but I'm not big on the crypto stuff at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I moved off of that. But yeah, I would say if you're looking for pre-match esports stuff, which I still do a lot of, Pinnacle is just fine. But if you want to do a lot of live, Bet365, Betway are probably, depending on where your region is, I would check those out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another question coming in by Natalie. She says, do you prefer to bet in play beforehand or both? I think we do both, at least in my case. I do both. There are matches that I know that I'm going to need to bet on live. But most of it we just do beforehand, I think, at least for me. And yeah, so the way that you can follow our bets is by following us on Twitter, SBR Esports. That's where we retweet most of our stuff. But of course, the Discord is a great way as well, because it's sort of like, if you're not familiar with Discord, it's essentially a chat with different categories or different channels where we discuss different games as they go up, when they're live or beforehand. And we also discuss futures and all that kind of stuff. So that is a great way to bet esports with us, is by joining our Discord. In terms of sportsbooks, going to the previous question, me personally, I started off betting on Bet365. I think they're great. They have a lot of markets going on. They're really good live, I think. I enjoy them. I enjoy their customer support also. I have no issues with Bet365 on withdrawals or anything like that. Betway is actually real good as well, and they do have a lot of investment going on right now on esports. They do sponsor a lot of teams, and they are very close to that community. So I think that's an absolute great option. I've heard a lot of great stuff about Arcane Bet. I've bet on them just a little bit, and I don't dislike them. The only thing I do have to say is that maybe they don't have all the markets that I would like. But I do bet on some real random stuff like Latin American League of Legends and that kind of stuff. So, it doesn't necessarily has to be a problem for you. But Neutral does bet on Arcane Bet, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe you can let us know what your thoughts are on the best sports books to bet on.
So yeah, I guess it depends on the region as well, right? Because if you're from the US, a lot of sports books are hard to get. Same for me. I mean, I'm from the Netherlands, so certain sportsbook are still kind of restricted.
Yeah.
I'm using Arcane. I like Arcane because they have a line that a lot of bookies don't have, and that's this is for CSGO. It's a player to get more kills than another player in a certain map.
Right.
And I'm quite sure I'm 5-1 for that line. The odds are kind of good for that one, so that's why I like Arcane. And they also offer live betting, so that's why I like Arcane personally. But I don't have that much experience with different bookies, so I'd say Arcane is a good one. But I think Adam gave a lot of good suggestions as well. Especially, I mean, it's region dependent as well, right? So, and yeah, I mean the live betting, and also about the live betting question, I feel like live betting is particularly good in esports because in League of Legends you'd have the draft happening, and you'd know, well, if you're like deep into League of Legends, you'd know which team is favored. And for CSGO, if a team is heavily favored and they lose a pistol round, the odds go up. But a pistol round doesn't necessarily mean they've lost. So that can also be really good in terms of potential and value.
True, absolutely. All right, guys, we have about 10 minutes left on our show. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. We really do appreciate the support. We read a lot of really good stuff on the chat today. Huge fan of the Money Gang Sports as well for joining. Natalie, who's always supporting us, we really do appreciate her. And of course, her shows are great, which you guys should definitely tune into. Coming right up after this one. But yeah. Let's jump right into the last match that we have to discuss before we have to get out of here and go grab some lunch. At least for me, because I know everyone up in Europe, lunchtime is over. But let's talk about Astralis versus FaZe happening tomorrow. I think it's like around 3 p.m. Eastern or something like that. But happening tomorrow at the FACEIT Major London 2018, Astralis versus FaZe. Adam, start us off with your best bets for this match.
I am on the over. I placed that on Tuesday or Monday night.
Interesting.
Even though in my write-up on the SBR site, I said this matchup has gone under the total every single time this year. I am taking the over. I'm going against the trend as I do. The reason is I think FaZe will take Mirage if Astralis gives it to him. I don't think Astralis will give them cash, and I think FaZe has a good enough T side. Even though they face lesser opposition, Astralis hasn't looked sharp on that map, and this is how lesser teams or teams not in the best form can upset sometimes. It's because they get a good map that they've practiced on, that they've anti-stratted their team. Also, we found out that Nico is the IGL for this tournament for FaZe. Now, this is a recent thing. It's because FaZe wasn't performing. And Kerrigan said in an interview I watched with Bank Esports, he said, I'm going to be the guy who's, dropping good weapons for my other players. I will take, I'll sacrifice myself, basically. I'll lurk, I'll throw the smokes, I'll throw the nades to make sure I set my teammates up in a good position to win rounds. And that's a support player. That's his role right now. And the fact that he has the maturity and just the smartness, wisdom to see this is what the team needs to get through, I think that's a good thing for the team. I don't think this is a sign of trouble, even if, he is a good in-game leader. So I think that they'll take a map, and I don't think that they'll 2-0 Astralis because it's Astralis. Astralis could probably beat them on Dust, Nuke, Overpass, Train. Astralis is the #1 team in the world right now. So I think we'll see a third map, provided FaZe get Cash or Mirage.
Absolutely. That's quite the statement, I think. Going against the trend like that, but not bad, not bad. The odds must have been great for that pick. What did you get that again at?
That was even money at Bet365.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, that's good. That's interesting. I'm not on anything for this one either. I've been a little bit busy and I haven't been watching a lot of the matches lately. I don't know. You know what really stuck with me, and I said it last show. It really stuck with me what you said, Adam, that one time where the major hasn't been won by the favorite team for a while, and I don't know if maybe this is the match where like an upset can happen, but at least the bet that you're on is a little safer, and I think it's a good one.
Well, I'm just going to add this. I'm just going to add one more note on this. FaZe in this matchup, this is the biggest price we've seen on FaZe since Sydney. And what happened in Sydney? Astralis was a 1.3 favorite to win the best of 5, and they lost 3-0. FaZe 3-0'd the favorite.
Hey,
so
yeah,
I'm not willing to put down a fucking dime. Sorry, excuse my language. On Astralis at 1.3, not a dime.
Hey, that is something I was not taking into consideration. That is good good thinking right there. So not a bad price for FaZe on the money line either. If you guys are thinking on putting a small stake on that. Neutral, what do you have for Astralis versus FaZe?
Yeah, I find it a really hard one to call because I feel like although Nico has been really good on calling on Mirage, right? And like Locke said, I think they'll pick Mirage. It still doesn't just like feel right to me that they'd switch IGL mid-major even if you're 0-2, you're like, we've seen this happening with Karrigan before, right? Because Karrigan got kicked from this Astralis core because nobody believed in his way of calling anymore, and they even like disallowed him to do the vetoes. Then Karrigan got kicked, and they brought in Glaive, and everyone was believing in the system of Glaive, and they started performing. So I feel like this is a bit of a grudge match as well. Let's keep that in mind. I mean, Karrigan against Astralis, his former teammates, but I feel like it's a really tough one to call because FaZe have looked really good on Mirage, but let's keep in mind Astralis did 16-0 MIBR, and let's also keep in mind that these guys they're the favorite for a reason. And like Locke said and you said, I think that Astralis will actually somehow not win the major either, but I think they'll win this one and then go on to face Liquid, and maybe then we'll see it. But I haven't decided on a bet yet, but I think that I'll be. At the moment, I'm eyeing over 2.5 as well, and maybe minus 1 point, like maybe minus 1.5, but it depends. Like I'm feeling as well, but I feel like Astralis does have the edge over Karrigan and FaZe. But then again, like Adam said, I'm not taking 1.3 odds on Astralis. It's just insane. Those aren't accurate odds because FaZe still have still have Nico, Guardian, Olofmeister, and Rain, obviously.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to production, by the way. They've been doing such a great job with the clips today. We want to get more of that to you guys so you can sort of get a better idea of how these esports look if you are not familiar with them. But just as you were saying that Astralis 16-0 at MIBR, they did play that clip. It hurts like hell to see it. but yeah, shout out to production as well here at SBR. They always put in a lot of work into their graphics, into their animations, into the whole production here at the studio and everywhere else in the world where we have people, joining the shows and whatnot. So shout out to them for doing such an amazing job all the time. That is pretty much our time, guys. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Really, it's been great. As I said, we will have a guest joining next week, and then after that, we might have more guests. We were talking about Call of Duty betting on the chat with some of the Money Gang guys. I would love to have Natalie and some of the other talent that we do have here at SBR come in and maybe discuss some of the similarities and differences between traditional sports betting and esports betting as well. And of course, we have Dream as one of our closest friends that's always capping StarCraft and other esports as well. So it'll be just super fun to have more of you guys on the show. Thank you so much for joining as well. Do remember to follow us on Twitter at SBR Esports and join our Discord where we discuss all sorts of betting, even soccer, and all sorts of other stuff. We'll open a channel for anything that you guys can think of. Spelling bee betting, hey, we'll do it. Doesn't really matter. But that's the time for us, guys. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, I think that is it for today. Hit us up on Twitter. Jay, hit us up on Twitter for best bets. We'll be posting those up, and also Discord. That's another place where we put our best bets. Adam, Neutral, thanks so much for being with us today, joining us for another show. And if you have anything to say to our fans, our followers, our people, maybe this is the time before we close out.
Yeah, thanks guys, and I'm sorry if I seem a bit distracted sometimes. I'm trying to watch my my big ticket on Complexity while the show's going on, but
You're on
I appreciate you all being.
You're
Yeah, I caught them live at 4.0, and they're winning right now. So
holy cow, man. Okay.
But yeah, sorry. So I am here fully, but esports, it's every day. There's a lot. We only have a show once a week, so best place to get in touch with us is on Twitter, and we can invite you to the Discord or whatever. So,
yeah.
But thanks for joining us. Chat with you next week.
Absolutely, thanks. And Neutral, do you have anything to say?
Well, yeah. Like Adam said, go to Discord if you want consistent picks like regularly. And thank you to everyone watching despite the major going on, because that's kind of the biggest event of CSGO, right? So
yeah, it's
still
always
happy that people are watching.
It's really good to see people joining when one of the biggest events is happening just at the same time. Hey, this is the schedule that was available, and this sort of works for us at the time. But maybe later on we do switch up the schedules just a little bit to have a better schedule for you guys, since you don't have to choose between one or another. But thank you so much for joining. We'll catch you later, guys. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel, and we'll be Speaking soon.